And thanks again to all of you for being here today. That's our last slide. So I'm going to stop here. And again, I mentioned that Nina Napolitano is on the job or on the series with us today. And hopefully a lot of you have already heard her name or been on meetings where she has introduced lots of great innovations in staffing. But Nina, if you would like to introduce yourself, and you can take it away. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks so much, Susan. So hi, everyone. I went off camera for a minute, but I'll go back off camera when I start presenting. I'm Nina Napolitano, and I work at national headquarters, and I am disaster staffing all day, every day. So I'm actually on Charlie Wooten's team. If many of you are familiar with Charlie, Charlie also heads up the Resource and Mobilization Support Unit, affectionately known as RMS. And I am the workforce and staffing side of the house there. So I hope you guys find this presentation informative. I will have also at the end of my slide deck some of the common, I like to put it, the common mistaken emails. So there's one for disaster.staffing, that's myself, the staffing and workforce team. And then Disaster Staffing Center at redcross.org is for my teammates in RMS. And I believe you guys are probably most familiar with Patrice Baxter, who is your RMS manager. So without any further ado, I'm going to jump into my presentation. And Susan, I'll just ask you, I'm going to start sharing my screen. I'll just ask that you let me know when I'm sharing it and you guys can see what I'm presenting.
I can see it, Nina.
Great. And when I'm doing this, unfortunately, I can't see the chat. So however you guys want to, if you guys want to just let me know if there's questions in the chat, and then we can answer them as we go through. I figured you guys probably have your own kind of rhythm to these. So I'm open to whatever you guys would like to, however you want to handle the chat.
Yeah, Nina, if you want to pause after each slide, maybe we can check and see if there's questions at that point.
That sounds great. That works for me. So
thanks.
Okay, so I'm calling this frequently asked questions and how to find answers. I know that on one of the earlier invitations to this, I will also be discussing a little bit about DCI, and I'm going to jump out and give you guys just a little preview for those of you who haven't seen DCI, and I will stop myself right now from talking in confusing acronyms. DCI stands for Daily Check-In. So that's one of the new enhancements that we are going to be introducing this season. We have been piloting it on a couple of DROs. We're still in the testing phase with it. We've had a couple of little technical issues with it that we're still trying to iron out. But you can expect this coming season to see Daily Check-In being used on a lot more of our DROs. So I like to start these presentations off by talking about workforce care. I feel like in staffing and in the workforce role, we can't really stress this enough, that this is, as I like to call it, it's basically like our credo or our principles in staffing, is to we're always putting our workforce front and center, as we should be. And our clients are the DRO volunteers and staff. We're in the business of workforce care. So I like to think of us as, we are that first, we're the first face generally people see on the DRO. So I want to make sure that that's always, that kind and welcoming face. So customer service is an extremely important part of our role in staff services. And I, just want always everyone to be thinking that we want to be putting our workforce first. They should always be treated with respect and kindness at all times. For many of you don't know too, I think about 2 years ago, the principle behind using more of the terminology of workforce care came out of the Workforce Care Task Force. And that was in response to, we got back a overwhelming amount of responses with lessons learned. And one of the themes that we took away from it is that we really could be doing a better job about caring for our workforce. So with that in mind, we really did a deep dive into a lot of the different processes that not only staffing and the workforce side of the house control, but overall, like a lot of our activities and leaderships on DROs, they're in the position to make these things right and make sure these things are done on all of our responses. So, and I like to put in here, the goal of every worker will receive that warm welcome, will have a clean and safe place to sleep, will be prepared for their assignment, will have a job to do and the training they need, as well as a supervisor, and that every worker will be treated with respect and fairness. I know these sound really, like, well, of course we do that. Well, we want to always strive for these things. This is what we should be doing. And if some of these questions seem familiar to this group, they're actually what we base our pulse checks on. So when you guys have been on DROs, and it's generally the larger scale, anything above a 3, we start asking if they would like a pulse check run on them. These are basically the 5 questions we ask are directly related back to these workforce care principles. So I just wanted to put that out there for any of you who might be like, I've seen that before. So the first thing I wanted to talk to you guys about, because Susan and I had a meeting and we were discussing some of the things that might be helpful for this group to learn a bit more about or be prepared for. And one of the things I like to talk about is, and I'll call it the dreaded 24-hour phone. And so I know that any of you who have been in staffing, probably at one time or another, have been asked to carry the 24-hour phone. And so for those of you on this call who might be a little newer, the 24-hour phone is basically the number we have listed in the IAP. And it's the number that someone can call basically 24 hours a day with any kind of question. And it can run the gamut in terms of what people ask. But when Susan and I were discussing this, we thought, what are the most common themes for these? And I'm just going to hold on one second because my dog is going crazy and I want to shut my door. She does not bark all day, but the minute I'm on a call, she decides to bark at the random Amazon man walking by. So I looked at, I also met with one of the other staffing people I work with a lot. And, I gathered what those common themes are for those calls. One of the big ones is going to be around lodging. Another one is going to be some sort of travel or transportation related issue. One can be someone who is sick. Another topic that we've gotten in the past can be conflict. And when I say conflict, it's maybe someone who's not getting along with a supervisor, who's not getting along with a roommate, was more common when we were doubling people up. Not getting along with someone else on the DRO, might just have a personal conflict that needs to be addressed. And then I laugh. I left the last category as potpourri and random. And when I say potpourri or random, it's just random questions we would get on the phone. And those, as always, we not always as prepared for, but like with anything and any kind of, you're holding a phone for something, you don't know what's going to be when the phone rings, what's going to happen on the other end of that phone. One of the other things that I think is important to stress when talking about something like this, when you're holding a phone, this is another important part for customer service. And I know it's not easy to think about customer service when the phone rings at 3 o'clock in the morning, but I do always want us to think about, we are at the other end of the phone, that, we want to be thinking with kindness and compassion. Even when the phone rings at 3 o'clock in the morning, it is a 24-hour line, so we can't always judge when it's going to ring. But the other important thing to think about too is what that person might be going through on the other end of the phone. So it's imparting a little bit about what we learn in psychological first aid. So I'd like you guys to to think about that in the back of your mind if you're asked to hold this phone. A good preparation, what I used to do before I had to hold this phone, and I kind of learned this one the hard way, is I usually have a copy of the IAP. So I have a copy of contact numbers. And also what the current DRIS message is, because sometimes it's as easy as I don't know what hotel I'm supposed to be going to. So maybe that person didn't receive a copy of the DRIS message. Not something you might be able to troubleshoot at 4 o'clock in the morning. Definitely something that you can look at troubleshooting the following day. But at that moment in time, you want to make sure that that person gets to where it is they need to go if they might be delayed and they're traveling in the middle of the night. Also, with the contact numbers, it could be that you're connecting the dots. So it might mean that this person needs the number of someone who's in health services or disaster mental health, or it might be your lodging person. But there's things you want to be aware of, and you want to have those numbers kind of ready, depending on what the person might call with. One other good thing with our lodging modules now is that everything is in volunteer connection. So we do have the lodging locations in the system. But if you feel more comfortable with it, and what I used to do is I would talk to my lodging person and say, look, any good contact numbers you can give me, or just, give me a rundown of where most people should be going to for an after hours hotel. So you're not kind of like fumbling around looking for information in a system. Another thing, that travel and transportation related. So again, you want to make sure the person has the funds they need to get them through to the following day. Make sure they have a safe place to stay. A lot of the common questions we get to is someone might not have received a confirmation from CWT yet. If that is the case, definitely have them reach back out to CWT to make sure that they have a booking or reservation. Those who are a little more tech savvy can even check out on an airport site to see if they've been confirmed. But the best rule of thumb is generally to call back CWT. The sick worker, as I mentioned, you want to make sure health services has been involved if they need immediate medical attention. Again, I usually would ask those, I know they sound like really basic questions, but you want to make sure that the person is safe. And when in doubt, if this is truly a real medical emergency, to make sure they know to call 911. You don't want someone waiting around for some sort of prognosis if they're not in a good way and they don't sound like they're in a good way. As well as it could be if someone is having some sort of severe panic attack or anxiety, you want to make sure that they're getting the attention they need right away. And again, that's why I said to have numbers included in the IAP for your health services contact and your DMH contact. While you can help in that moment, you can also get them connected with the person who really can truly help them. And sometimes some of these things, like transportation and travel related, lodging, you want to make sure they're safe that night and they have a place to sleep. But if there is some kind of confusion, or they're not sure of their rooming or where they're going to be or how they're going to get home the following day, some of these things can also be taken care of the next morning. But you just want to make sure the person is safe, they've got a place to sleep for the night, and that they're okay, and that we've connected them with the right person. That kind of goes across the board too with a conflict. We want to make sure staff relations, if we need to get staff relations involved, if it's something to do with their supervisor. The issue that we did used to run into more often when we doubled people up, they were not getting along with a roommate. So if they've got a safe place to stay that night, or if it is an issue where we do need to move them that night, we want to get our lodging team involved too, so that we can find out where there might be an open place for them. This is happening less now that we have people in single rooms. But again, we want. I'm sorry, was that a question?
No, Nina, if everyone could please mute their mics, that would be great. Thanks.
Thanks, Susan. But again, we want to make sure if this is some sort of conflict, we want to get to the nature and the heart of it, and see if it's something that we want to make sure they're safe in the moment and safe for that evening. And then if this is something that needs to be escalated the following day, some of these things that do crop up on this phone, we don't want to just we obviously want to try to troubleshoot it in the evening, but there might be issues that need follow up the next day. And we also do want to make sure we do that follow up and we connect the dots the next day. So if staff relations has been involved, we might want to connect them with staff relations the following day and make sure it's something that staff relations can, if they need to open a case on it. Again, we're not asking people who carry this phone that they should be the be all and end all and have all the answers to everything. It's more or less they're able to connect the dots and make sure people are okay that evening. And that goes for my potpourri and random category. I have had, as interesting as it might sound, had people who just want to really talk in the middle of the night. And I attribute that sometimes to people, it might be their first deployment. They could be nervous. They just want a friendly voice at the other end of the phone. It might be something where they might be a little overwhelmed. This might not be of what they expected, but you want to just talk with that person, have your compassion and kind hat on, and just talk through what it is that's going on. And maybe a deployment isn't what they thought it might be, and maybe the following day they want to look into they might want to leave the DRO. But like I said, it might be someone who just wants to talk. I brought up that example because it actually happened to me on a DRO. I had someone who was just not in a good place about it. They were relatively new. They felt like they were letting a lot of people down. And that's not the case. When someone deploys, they make that choice to go out into the field and deploy and to serve, a greater cause, which is what we do. But I think people put a lot of pressure on themselves about it, and you want to just make sure people know it's okay. These are all problems that are fixable, but we don't want someone to be in a situation where it's going to be causing them a lot of anxiety or insecurities, or even start really affecting them, that they don't feel like they can adequately do the job. So again, if someone needs to go home, that's definitely something that can be discussed and worked on the next day. We probably couldn't send them home that night, but just to make sure that they're settled and that they're in a good place, and that we could make that happen for them the following day. So that was a lot, Susan. So I'll stop there because I have a feeling there's probably some questions along that line.
I think we have some questions and comments, and the first thing are some of the acronyms, and the first one was
Sure.
the IAP. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I absolutely can. That's the Incident Action Plan. So anyone who gets assigned to the DRO, they will start getting a copy of this in their email. And us in staffing, that becomes like our little guidebook, if you will, on how to find information needed. And on that, it's usually like a couple of pages in after the weather brief and stuff. There's usually a contact roster that has everyone on the DRO, and it's usually the leads for those activities. But I find that to be like my little cheat sheet to find people.
Got it. Thanks. And I always like to know that there's other people who are expecting a call, like if there's a lodging lead.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then another question was about the DRIS. What does that mean? And how would somebody who is holding the phone know what's on it?
You can generally get a copy of the DRIS message. So the DRIS message is actually, it's a message that the staffing team puts together. And what they do is they send that message in generally twice daily, unless it changes, to my colleagues in RMS. And what it is it's an automated message that gets sent out through another system we have called Ad Hoc. And I would love to give you the acronym for that, but I'm not entirely sure what that is, but it's basically a phone system we use that can push out notifications to our traveling responders. So it goes out generally through a text message. So that gives us when we put those messages together, we like to include any pertinent information for when that staff arrive on the ground, like what hotel they're going to. If they're landing at an airport, it could mean to like go to the Avis counter and pick up a car, drive to the Best Western on Main Street. And these are all the contact numbers that you'll need. So that's basically, and anyone in your staffing team should be able to give you a copy of what's in the latest DRIS message.
Okay, perfect. I was going to ask that. Should they ask their staffing lead for that
Yep.
before they leave for the
Yes,
night?
they should.
All right. How about DMH? Can you explain what that is?
Sure, that's disaster mental health. And you guys are awesome for breaking me down on my acronyms too. That's disaster mental health. We at the Red Cross start talking in these weird languages. I don't know how that happened to me, but disaster mental health. And like health services, we usually have a lead for that on every DRO. And disaster and mental health, well, they normally deal with our clients also can be our workforce as well.
Perfect. Okay, two more. One is CWT and one is RMS.
Okay, RMS is Resource and Mobilization Support. They are a universal team. I am a part of that team. They are your deployment people. So your disaster workforce engagement managers probably talk to your RMS team a lot because they are in charge of all deploying and travel related things. And CWT is Carlson Wagonlit Travel. They are a contractor of ours who does they handle all of our travel. So they handle all of our airline reservations. Mostly airline reservations because Avis is separate.
Awesome. And then we had one, I was going to bring up this question that, let me go back here. Roxanne brings up, when answering questions in the middle of the night, does the staff services volunteer make the calls regarding lodging, transportation, etc.? Or are there 24-hour numbers for them as well? It could cause more stress if the activity can't be contacted.
I think it's a good rule of thumb. What I used to do when carrying, and this is just my own personal experience, I usually would talk to my lodging person before taking the phone and say, look, is it okay if I call you? What is the best number to get someone on? So I think it's a good read, depending on who you're talking to. If that person is okay just calling the lodging person, then absolutely give out that person's number. Trust me when I say, and I know I've got a couple of my lodging people on this call, they are used to getting these calls. So they are very responsive at answering the phone. And I would equally do that with, generally, there is going to be a staff health number set up that's also 24-hour in case someone is ill in the middle of the night. So I would confirm those before I take the phone, or while it's still like working hours. So what are working hours on a DRO? But before it gets super late into the night, I usually confirm those with the leads just to let them know, is it okay if I reach out to you directly or send this person to you? So I just gauge it by what that activity does. Generally, I will let the person call the lodging person themselves. I also don't want to get into the game of too much telephone and information might get lost. It's best just to probably connect them with that lead, especially if it's something where it's health related. I'd rather they talk to the person who is the registered professional for that. Does that answer, Susan?
Actually, yeah, and that's kind of a good follow-up. Jean asks, is this primarily an overnight phone with people expected to call someone in the particular activity during day shift?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think it's very dependent on the DRO. I know on some DROs, the 24-hour phone rings a lot, especially if there might be some sort of issue that's occurred with something. Like a transportation issue of some sort, it might ring more. But I think during the day, it's also interesting when you're working in a more virtual environment. I think the 24-hour phone might get more calls on it, but now that we're going to be going back to a little bit more in-person DROs, I think people generally will try to seek out the staffing people they've been dealing with. So it kind of is dependent on the DRO. I would say the 24-hour phone call, if I had to call it, I would say probably 75% of the calls are going to be related to lodging.
Mm-hmm.
So, yep.
So that's a very good point. And I was going to say, Laura indicates that most of the calls she would get in the middle of the night could absolutely have waited until business hours. And so maybe lodging doesn't fall in that. But then both Rana and Robin indicated that they would get calls about out processing and mission cards also. So those definitely could wait.
Yeah, and that's the thing that you want to check with the person too. It could just be that they're very anxious. They need to talk to someone. They want to, is it okay to wait till the following morning? And I think sometimes you are talking them to that place too. So you want to just be, I just be cognizant of who you're talking to on the other end of the phone. But I always say, and like I was talking with one of my other staffing people about when we were talking about this presentation is, just think if you were on the other side of the phone and, you'd want someone who's kind, compassionate, listening, not like, oh my God, you just woke me up in the middle of the night. Well, probably did, but you probably don't want to say that to the person. So, just take it with if you're on the other end of the phone, how you'd want to be treated. And sometimes it's just that compassionate ear to just, bounce things off of, yes, that can wait till the morning. Why don't you come to staffing? We'll make sure we get your mission card taken care of. But it's why I was saying with some of these things, do you have funds tonight? Do you have a safe place tonight? It's just, we can get you through until the following morning.
I think the idea of being woken in the middle of the night and being compassionate is fine for a night or two. Would you say that you don't necessarily hold the 24-hour phone indefinitely? You just take a turn with it?
Yeah, absolutely. Take a turn with it. And as those on the phone who I know are leadership, make sure you are circulating that phone through. And also, I know I call it like the hot potato phone, but it's also, it's good experience for people to know what it is, what it means to hold the phone and the importance of it. So I think it's good that you cycle that through. I have heard of people hanging on to that phone, and that's not good because then they're not getting the adequate rest they need, and it can be a little stressful. So that's why you want to make sure people are taking a turn with it. When I've been on DROs, we try to make sure we change it every night.
Sounds good. I've lost the scroll, but there's one person in the chat who really likes holding it. So I kind of want that person on my next disaster.
Yes, we all want you on our next TR.
And then Doug Fee says, for awareness, ad hoc isn't an acronym. It's a Latin phrase that refers to something being for a specific purpose. So there you go. You don't need to learn.
Awesome. Thank you. I thought it was another acronym or it was something with the system itself that we use. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Let's see. Let me see if there's any other questions. Denise says that on our recent disaster in Gold Country, we had a 24-hour lodging phone too. So that hopefully.
Yeah, I neglected to say that, but that's true. As we get on our larger DROs, we will start breaking apart some of those so that they can just call the 24-hour lodging phone.
Yeah. And then
those are generally the larger DROs.
Melissa Kaplan's hoping that we can have name badges for the next DR that says it's in the IAP, like a little button that you wear in case.
Like that's easy. It's in the IAP.
Yeah.
I like that.
And Luann,
I would vote for that.
Me too. Luann has a great suggestion to make copies of the arrival roster so she has an idea of who might be coming in late. That's a great
suggestion. I would say if you have it, if you keep a laptop in your room or you have it open, I actually, funny story, and I'll keep it really short because I know we're short on time, but I was sharing a room with someone. I was also, just for everyone to put it out there, I was the staffing manager on this job and I was sharing a room with someone. So just so you know, everyone shares rooms. And I was sharing a room with someone who was in like external relations. So I'm like, are you sure you want to share a room with someone in staffing? And she's like, no, no, I'm good. She's like, oh my God, you wake up in the middle of the night and you have like answers and then you fall right back to sleep. How do you do that? And I was like, I don't know. I guess I've just had to hold the phone like one too many times, but she'll never room with a staffing person again. But we were friendly, so that's why. So
Well, that's good. It worked out.
yeah.
So Laura has one more comment, and she says, for sanity's sake, I request that after hours calls to the staffing line be reserved for emergencies only. And that's something we could either mention in like the all hands meetings, or how would you suggest getting that information out, Nina?
Yeah, I would put that out as something for the all hands. And again, it's subjective because with some people that is their emergency. And that's why I have found like it's like you want to be cognizant of that on the other end of the phone. Like that person who called me, they were truly super anxious and just not in a good place. And they, I think, felt all alone. So for them, that was truly an emergency. But yeah, I think it's good you can reiterate that at your stand-ups to just be mindful the people holding the 24-hour phone are people too. So they need to get rest as well. And one thing we would do too, if someone was really busy on the staffing team, like it might have been a night where that phone was ringing a lot. There could have been something that happened. There was some confusion in maybe some of the messaging that went out. I would let that person, take like if we could take a half a day to just sleep, just so that they could get a little more rest if they were kept up all night. So you want to keep the sanity of the person who had the phone.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, I think that clears most of the questions.
Excellent. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next slide then.
Thank you.
And I was worried that I wouldn't have enough material.
That's how it works, right?
Yep, always. So I want to talk a little bit with you about the Big Four reports, for lack of a better title for this one. So a lot of these reports, and someone touched on that in the last section, can answer a lot of your common questions. So the Big Four reports, I call them the staff roster, the air travel roster, the arrival roster, and the open staff summary report. So for those of you who are new, these reports, when we have a DR that's generally over a level 3, so we're going into the categories of 4 and larger, we can, and when I say we, I say my team at national headquarters can set up to have these reports sent to you in automated so that you will get them. I believe we send them out twice a day to the teams so that you guys can just open up an email and then they're there, and then you can distribute those on as you see fit to those on your DRO. So the first report I want to talk about is the staff roster. So this is a great report because it is purely what it sounds like. It's the staff roster. You can double check on this, who's assigned, what their status is, how long they're going to be on the DRO. It tells them where they're lodged. It can even show, it shows all your workers' supervisors as well. So it's a good one to look at if you want to see on this report if someone might be missing a supervisor. And it should show everyone should have some sort of lodging status on it. So all your virtuals should probably show as home of record. So even if a person's staying at their home, it should show their lodging status as well. So that's a really great inclusive report that you guys have. And it's just a good one you can also run this from the queries tool in Volunteer Connection. But again, like I said, on our larger DROs, we set up an automated system that will set it out to the staffing leads on the DROs and the workforce ADs, and then they can distribute these reports accordingly to those who need them. We suggest these generally go out to the leads of the different activities on the DROs as well. The air travel roster is like it sounds, it's everyone who's traveling by and arriving by air. So this helps with planning, not only who's arriving, but who might be leaving. It also gets you thinking, are there special instructions that people should know about the particular airport they're flying into? Should you have more airports maybe added to your DRO? And this is more for our leadership to think about. You might be flying people into to start with one particular airport, but if your DR is widespread or in a more rural area, you might want to add additional airports to the DRO for people to fly to. And as always, I would be reluctant if I didn't talk about our ambassadors, but it's good to think if you have a lot of people arriving at a particular airport, might want to think about having your ambassadors out at those airports to greet the arriving staff. And then we also have our arrival roster. And this is who's arriving by any means on the DRO. So this is people could be traveling by a Red Cross vehicle. They could be traveling by their own vehicle, an IRV, but however, a rental car, however they're arriving to the DRO, this is going to show everyone who's arriving to the DRO. And this is a great report to look at because it's good for planning not only for our lodging, but our activities can see when their people might be arriving, because it's also shows the person's gap, which is their group activity and position. And you can also check you might have people who show up on this report who might show that they've been assigned, but they might not have been checked in yet. So you want to make sure people are getting checked in when they arrive on the DRO. You can gauge by what's been posted on the door, which is the Disaster Operations Open Report. See, Susan, I'm getting better with the acronyms. You can see, depending on how many positions you might have open positions, you could see how many people you might be expecting to arrive at your DRO. So you might start getting a big influx of workers because there might be a lot of staff requests that have been posted to the door. So these reports help you a lot with your planning. And again, if you have a lot of people arriving on one particular day to one particular airport, you want to make sure you have a system in place to properly in-process people, and that you're prepared to take in and start in-processing a lot of people. And as always, you want to make sure you have with your lodging team, they are looking at these reports as well, but so that they know that, they're going to need quite a bit of lodging if a lot of people are arriving in. And last but not least, I was discussing the door, but your open staff summary. So this is what's actually on the door. And this can help you plan for anticipated needs, again, if things aren't getting filled as quickly. But you also want to be thinking ahead of time. If you have people who might be out processing, you want to start thinking about staff turnover. So you're going to want to be thinking about putting positions onto the door. And as always, you're probably going to have your RMS person reaching out and asking you about the open requests that are on the door. But this open staff summary report gives you a snapshot of what you currently have on the door. So that's a whole lot. And I'll pause there, Susan, too.
Thanks, Nina. So you had mentioned the automated reports that can be started up by disaster staffing at level 3 or level 4. Is there another way that a staffing person can run those reports themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. Those are actually in the, when you're in disaster management, you can go into the queries tool and you can just look them up by those names. And there's a search bar in there, which is usually what I end up using because of the fact that there's, gosh, I think we're up to like 11 pages of reports. And just like I know the staff rosters on page 9, for instance, or 10 at this point. But when we add new reports, it makes that pretty lengthy. So you can start typing it in and pull those up.
All right, perfect. Oh, and Jean adds, going back to our previous slide, the phrase ad hoc might be confused with at hoc, a notification system used by the Red Cross and some of our partners, adhoc.com.
So, yes, that's what it is. It's ad hoc. It's just probably the way I pronounce it that comes out like ad hoc.
They're so similar.
They
And
are
then
very similar.
Melissa has a great idea. So on a DR in NCCR in Northern California coastal region, a year ago, they pulled the arrival roster every night to get the names of people due to arrive in person and virtual in the next 3 to 5 days. And they emailed them to invite them to take the DRO orientation and our IAP and knee workshop before they left home, so they would not have to take time to do it after they in-processed.
That's a great best practice. I love that.
I do too.
I have heard of people reaching out, and if time is on your side and you have that to do, that's fantastic. I've also had best practices used that way with our lodging team as well. So yeah, that's a great one. Thank you for that.
And Robin says, when on a DRO, do we send an email to disaster.staffing at redcross.org to request the automated reports to the AD of workforce or staffing lead? So is that something that the AD of workforce requests, or is that something else?
It's generally the AD of the workforce will request that.
And then the AD can request that the whole team get the reports?
Well, we've changed that around. It's a good question. Thanks, Robin. But we've just changed that around a little bit. What we do is now we just put the AD of the workforce and the staffing manager or lead on it. So it's two names are on the report. And then what we do is we have a job tool on how to make an Outlook group. We set up an Outlook group for you, and then we give you the, it's really easy. You can then add and take off names at will, and you can add them to the group, and that's how you can push out the reports. And we just created a job tool for it too.
I have to say, I'm on a DR right now, and it's the first time I've used that, Nina, and it is so slick. It's
good. I'm glad you like it. We really, we had to come up with a good solution for that because we were getting underwater with, I mean, we had some DRs where we had about like 40 names on that. And
yeah.
in that system, it's not friendly to add names to in the CC line. So it became super cumbersome. And then we would drop someone off and they're wondering why they're not getting their reports. I'm glad you like it, Susan. Thank you for the feedback. We just created that system.
Oh, good. So, yeah, because I think I remember the old version too, where we had to email you, we need this person added and this person taken off. So yes, much easier. So thank you.
Excellent. Excellent.
All right. I think we're probably ready for your next slide.
Awesome, because the next slide's chock full of good stuff.
Okay.
So the other thing I wanted to talk to you guys about too was that, worker support is our primary focus. And how do we best support our workforce and our own teams? So of course, lodging. I have them listed here in no particular order. By the way, I don't want you to think I'm playing favorites with this. And I have some new things in here too. And I think we'll have time that I can jump out and show you guys just what daily check-in looks like. But just things to think about. I think everyone will agree when I talk about lodging, it's probably one of the most stressful things our workforce might go through is not knowing where they're going to sleep. And they'll remind you of it too if you haven't given them where their room location is. So having an organized plan for lodging can alleviate a lot of the stress. The new lodging modules in Volunteer Connection, I have an amazing new text message feature when we put people into the little room boxes in the system, which is a game changer in terms of it helps increase our ability to communicate the room assignments and with the workforce. So while this is revolutionary, what we're doing with the lodging in Volunteer Connection now, it's by no means like the be-all and end-all to solving all of our lodging dilemmas. We are always going to run into issues where we can't find lodging in certain areas. And Carl will be talking to you on the next presentation, so I'm not stealing his thunder about lodging, but there's going to be times where we can't find lodging in certain locations, and then we have to go to a non-conventional lodging source. That might mean a staff shelter. It might mean we're going to a park. It might mean a college campus. We are going to be looking at lots of different options for that. But if we do need to go to a staff shelter, we have put together a great resource list about how to equip these and make these more comfortable stays for our staff. So we've come kind of leaps and bounds with the staff shelter as well. So, and that's, we have more information on that. It's going to be published soon to the exchange. But definitely, we just want to make sure that people know we are taking care of their needs and we're putting their needs first. So it's, we try to have our best plan and our best foot forward with lodging. We try to identify areas that might be lacking lodging and then come up with a plan. But we really don't want to show that side necessarily to the workforce. We just want to let them know you will have a clean and safe place to stay tonight. And the best way we can do that is by communicating that with our workforce. But I know our new lodging modules have definitely helped us be more organized with where our lodging is and what room people are in as well. The next up I have is our ambassador program. I absolutely love this program. I helped create it with one of my teammates. This is our warm welcome. It's the good hello of the workforce. Generally, we have these people out at our areas where a lot of workforce might be coming into. So that could be our airports. They could be even at a larger in-processing center. It might be at a headquarters. But they've kind of what I call like they were the missing link of our DRO workforce who's arriving and then getting them checked into the job. So, it's really kind of scary if you've deployed for the first time and you land in this strange city. And as much as it might seem like a secret mission because you're calling these random phone numbers to get a reservation on a flight and you don't know what to expect. So having that person wearing the Red Cross, whether it's a vest or a t-shirt at the airport welcoming them, it can take a lot of the stress out of the situation to make them know, one, we're happy you're here. Two, you've landed in the right place. And three, we're going to show you what those next steps might be. So wherever we can, if you're on a larger DRO, if you can have this program set up in place, it's not hard to do. We even have a cool little video that you can watch about it, but it's definitely a value add to our DRs that have the ambassador program. And even during our COVID, when we were more of our COVID posture that we were taking these past 2 years, that team was, very flexible. We even had them handing out PPE at some of the job sites. So you can definitely think outside the box with your ambassador program, especially if people are comfortable, if they're doing something that's a little out of the norm of what you might think of the ambassador program. Another resource that we have as well is staff relations, and those are part of our staffing team, and they are there to help with any conflict resolution that might come up on a DRO. So as best as we can, we always try to de-escalate a situation or an issue, but there might be times where an issue needs to be escalated or taken to the next level. We want to make sure the proper steps are being followed at all times, and that all the parties that need to be brought into the situation are indeed brought in. We have a wonderful new tool that's called the Workforce Complaint Manager in Volunteer Connection. And it's great because it's a tracking tool for any of these issues that are brought up on a DRO. We want to make sure that an issue that's happens on a DRO is indeed taken care of, and that if need be, it's it's brought back to a home region as well. So it's not like we want to bury any problem that happens on a job. We want to make sure it's seen through to resolution. And if you're interested in that, I know that there are courses in how to use the Workforce Complaint Process Manager, and I believe those are recorded sessions that are posted on Edge. But again, that speaks to treating our workforce with respect and fairness as well. I have assignment changes on here. There might be times when one gap is no longer as critical. We might ask someone to fill another role on a DRO. As people in staffing, we're probably going to be the ones making that assignment change, but we want to make sure people are okay with the change and that they feel comfortable in working in a new role. While we can actually make that change in volunteer connection, we want to make sure it's a change that the person is good with before we go ahead and do that. So it's just something that I know it falls on our side of the house to do it, but we want to make sure people are comfortable accepting a new change. Daily check-in, so DCI, another acronym we're adding into the fold. So this is an automated message. This is yet to be widely released. So if people are like, oh my God, I haven't seen daily check-in, or I might have seen it only once on a DRO, this is an automated message. It's going to be sent out to workers, and it's going to be sent out. We're working out the time right now, but we're looking at about 10 a.m. local time to the DRO. And it's an automated text message, and it asks our workforce to confirm their contact details for accuracy. So this is going to help us in staffing know where our workforce is, what they're doing, and where they're lodged. And by accessing the workforce queue, which I will show here, Susan, if we have the time, we can quickly update this information so it's correct. And this speaks directly to our workforce safety and making sure we know where our teams are, that we have the correct data in the system so that, again, if we needed to reach someone, we're able to do it. And it speaks to taking care of the safety of the workforce and knowing where our workforce are.
Nina, because we just have a few minutes left, maybe we need to have you come back later and give us the demonstration of the daily check-in.
I would love to do that too, Susan, if that would work out better, because I realize we're kind of short on time, and I apologize for that.
No, it's all good. I did want to bring up Hillary's question here too. She said, how will the staffing team's tasks change with the introduction of the upcoming DRO section of the Volunteer Connection app? And how will we deal with conflicting info? For example, staff request on the DR had a sheltering manager as a supervisor for everyone coming in, but as decisions are made on where to send people, their supervisor and work location will change, but Volunteer Connection won't catch up yet. And Hillary, I just wanted to say, I hope you can join us in the end of May. Julie Shaning is going to be on, and she's going to be talking about the new app, but she's also going to be talking specifically how it impacts the staffing team. So hope you can join us then. All right, Nina, back to you.
Yeah, I don't want to steal Julie's thunder with the Responder app because that's super cool. And then the pulse check surveys. So some of you, and I know some of you because I saw the little bubbles when I first joined, are very familiar with the pulse check surveys, but they are actually based on the things I read early on in the presentation. So we ask these questions, and they are just what that sounds like, a pulse check. It gives us kind of like a barometer of how the overall workforce is doing. So if we see maybe some more negative responses on some of those questions, it kind of shows us it's not like a report card, if you will, but it's more showing us, wow, we really need to be paying attention. People are not getting technology in the field. What's going on? It helps us kind of zero in where those pain points might be so that we can solve the problem. So it's by people being truthful with those pulse check surveys helps us zero in quicker on where we might need to go and the work we might need to do so that, this isn't going on for 2 weeks or 3 weeks on someone's deployment. We can fix issues that might be bubbling up quicker and give them the needed targeted attention. So it's just a way of us being more efficient in helping the workforce. I have safety messaging on here because I think this is an important one too, sent through that. Again, this is sent out through ad hoc, and I want to make sure I'm not like using my like slow speech on that, but the ad hoc system. And these can be messages that generally the staffing team puts together. They send on to our team and we push them out. They're generally, most of them are about, could be incoming weather that could impact like road closures, might be some immediate flooding. It might be a ground stop. That is a common one we get for safety messaging. You know, they want the workforce to stay where they're at and not move. So it's strictly used for safety to make sure that the workforce knows not to, maybe they're a ground stop, not to move, don't use, you know, Highway 1, it's going to be flooded out. Some other uses have been for also civil disturbances as well. To avoid certain areas, there might be a protest going on, a march, something like that, but just something to keep our workforce in the know, especially if you're in an area you're not used to traveling around in. And last but certainly not least is avoiding staff burnout. So I put this on here for our leaders and for all of us to always think about. Definitely have a day off schedule in place for your workforce. Encourage your teams to take days off to recharge. Make sure your team's adequately staffed so you can allow for breaks and days off. And definitely set the example as leaders and take your day off. This speaks directly to our workforce care. There's, you know, I hate seeing those people like, it's been 14 days, I haven't taken a day off. That's not something to be celebrated. That's something to be concerned about. You need to be taking those days off. What we do is hard work. What we do in staffing is, in my opinion, especially hard work because we're dealing with the people on the workforce. So make sure you take that time to recharge, take that day off, go out, sleep all day if that's what it is, whatever it is, but recharge your batteries. What we do is tough work. And it will make you come back refreshed. Even that one day off can mean really a world of difference when you're working on a DRO. So definitely, and practice what you preach. Take your day off. The world will not fall apart if you take a day off. Trust me. Everyone needs that day off time. So.
Thank you, Nina. Do you have any more information, or will you provide the
Real
slide?
quick, I said that's our contact info, and that's my last slide. So
Awesome.
we are at disaster.staffing, and I say we, I mean disaster, meaning myself, Roxy Trudeau, Paul Beatty, Jill Neiman, Selena Vega, and we are at disaster.staffing. That is our email that you can ask technical questions to and support while you're on the DRO. And if you're traveling to, or you have questions with the DRIS, staff requests, or the DOOR, that's my colleagues in RMS and their Disaster Staffing Center. So yes, we have confusing emails, and one day we'll get those changed.
It's so perfect because I think you, Paul, and Roxy have all stressed that. So I'm hoping by the end of these series, we'll get those straight. Probably just in time for you to change the names
just
or
something. Just in time for us to get that changed, right? That'll always be the way.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for coming and reminding us to be compassionate, Nina, and then just giving us lots of information and lots to think about. Really appreciate you coming in today.
Thank you. And I love seeing so many faces that I know and so many that I haven't met yet. So it's awesome. Thank you guys, everything for what you do every day for the American Red Cross. We do truly appreciate you. You guys have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Nina. And I wanted to remind everyone, next Thursday, we have Carl Gingrich coming in. He leads the virtual lodging team, and he'll be talking about lodging. So we're hoping you can join us next Thursday as well. Have a great week, everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Bye, all.
Thank you very much. It was great.
Thank you. Bye.
Hey, Susan or Sherry, will you stay on to make sure that I can?
Thank you.
Yeah, I think Sherry had to drop off. I'm happy to stay on.
Okay. She said that I needed to grant her access, and I'm like, oh God.
I know, and I think it's like those that ellipse or something. Those 3 dots, like when the recording is.
Yeah,
so you.
I was in
that. Go ahead and stop the recording.
Okay, I just did that.